Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to look at three headlines that seem totally unrelated, but when you put them all together, they tell one single, really important story about the fragile digital world we're all building. So let's connect the dots and see what they show us. You know, it sounds like the start of a pretty weird joke, right? But the answer is actually, well, deadly serious. Each one of these things represents a different kind of digital threat, one that's personal, one that's national, and one that, well, it could change what it even means to be human. All right, let's start with something that I think hits close to home for pretty much all of us, the security of our own money. This story kicks off with a major credit card company, Lotte Card, and a data breach they didn't see coming. Or maybe more accurately, they didn't see it for a long, long time. 17. Just remember that number. For 17 straight days, hackers were just roaming free inside the systems at Lotte Card, a company that serves over 9 million people, and the whole time, the company had absolutely no idea. Okay, so what's really wild about this timeline is the massive gap you see here. The attack itself, it started on August 14th and was all over by the 16th. But Lotte Card, they didn't spot the break-in until 2 full weeks later, on August 31st. They only told the authorities on September 1st. That is a huge window of time for things to go wrong. And yeah, during that window, the attackers weren't just looking around. They walked away with 1.7 gigabytes of data. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but because financial info is mostly text, that small file could easily hold months of private transaction records for nearly 10 million people. So how'd they do it? You'd think it was some super sophisticated brand new attack, right? Nope. They used a well-known security flaw in Oracle software. The crazy part? A patch, a fix, had been available since 2017. All they had to do was update their software. A simple failure to patch left the front door wide open for 8 years. Okay, so now let's see what happens when this kind of problem scales up. We're zooming out from one company's mistake to a massive threat against an entire country's essential infrastructure. First, investigators found clear evidence of a hack at KT, one of South Korea's biggest telecom companies, and they believe the culprits are the notorious North Korean hacking group Kimsku. But as you can guess, the problem didn't stop there. Because that same investigation turned up a similar breach at their biggest competitor, LG Uplus. And that right there tells you this probably wasn't just a one-off hit. This was starting to look like a coordinated campaign against the country's entire communications network. And this is where the sheer scale of the problem becomes terrifying. Because when you add in a previous incident at the third major carrier, SK Telecom, it means all three of South Korea's main telecom networks showed signs of being compromised. The entire system was vulnerable. And just look at what they might have gotten. At KT, a critical security certificate was leaked. But at LG Uplus, it was way worse. Internal source code, details on thousands of servers, and over 42,000 internal accounts. I mean, that's not just customer data. Those are basically the keys to the kingdom. That kind of access could bring a national network to its knees. But here's the twist. Even with all this evidence, a full-scale government investigation couldn't get off the ground. Why? Because the law says authorities can't really dig in until a company officially reports a breach themselves. As one legislator, Choi Min-hee, pointed out, this creates a huge loophole where companies can just deny to avoid a real investigation. So, we've looked at a threat from the past and a big failure in the present. Now let's zoom out one last time to a fight that is going to define our future, the race for technological dominance, and it's being fought over the human brain itself. So on one side, you've got the US, where you have these pioneering private companies like Neuralink doing amazing work, but they're slowed down by a very careful, very strict regulatory process. And then on the other side, you have China, which just announced a massive government-run national plan to not just compete, but to flat out dominate this industry. And they are not messing around with their goals. Beijing has laid out a super aggressive timeline. They want to get brain-computer interfaces out of research labs and into widespread medical use by 2027. And by 2030, they want to have globally dominant BCI companies. Their plan is actually kind of brilliant in how coordinated it is. They're weaving together government policy, research, and manufacturing all into one focused push. A huge part of this is developing their own BCI chips so they don't have to rely on anyone else, and then using their massive electronics industry to scale up production like crazy. So let's pull it all back together. a credit card hack that happened because of an old, unfixed bug, an entire national telecom network exposed because of legal loopholes, and a global race to control the tech that literally plugs into our brains. What do these all have in common? It's a pattern of vulnerability, really, at every single level. The credit card hack shows us a failure to secure the past, just not doing basic maintenance. The telecom breaches, they show us a system that's failing to secure the present, where our laws just can't keep up with the technology. And that BCI race, that's the future, where the winner might not be who invents the coolest tech, but who has the smartest plan to roll it out. All of these stories, from our wallets to our nations to our own minds, they all force us to ask this one really big question. As we keep connecting every single part of our lives to the internet, you gotta wonder, what are we actually building this future on? Is it solid rock, or is it just Sam?